So I guess I've been DJing for about 23, 24 years. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about my intro into music, which was a very London-centric story. So here we go, exposing myself. So I first heard jungle I can remember when I was about 10 or 11. My older brother was listening to Cool FM all the time, pirate radio was everywhere. And I have this really kind of intense memory of hearing the music, not being able to hear any of the patterns or the grooves or the bass lines or anything like that, but just knowing that it made me go fucking nuts as a kid. So that energy, the feeling of it was just wild. I would turn even more hooligan-like when I was 11. I remember my brother's mates used to find it so funny, like put on some jungle and watch indie go crazy. And this feeling, I think, is something that I still have, if I'm honest with you. You know, it's when the time is right and when the context is right for it. So I kind of remember it being around the house when I was about 11. That's my best mate there. That's actually a picture of us dancing to a Nicky Black Market and Stevie Hyper D tape when we were 11. And then I got into garage. This would have been like around 98. It was quite short-lived, but it was when garage was really popping off. There were raves every weekend. And the first rave experience that I have, again, it's this real intense, clear, vivid memory that I have. And I was 14, just turned 14. My best mate here, Lanya, was still 13. And my brother took us. And our parents let us. They were like, all right, take them, but they have to be home by like 1:30. And it was Bagley's, which was this huge rave warehouse in King's Cross. And we had our fake IDs. We were dressed up to the nines and we got in. And I don't know, do any of you know the tune by MC Luck and Neat? A little bit of luck, the garage tune, yeah? It was like #1 and stuff. And it's such a well-known tune now. And it's so bait and you hear it like everywhere. But at the time it hadn't come out and they were doing a live PA of it at this first rave. And I just remember being at the back of the club and, you know, like you just know you're not supposed to be there. Like I'm 14, I shouldn't be here. Like, and the intro, if you listen to it, it's quite kind of eerie. It's got these pads and this kind of bass and then the da-da-dee-da, and he comes in. And it's like, at the time I was like, what is going on? This is amazing. And I vowed that I was gonna spend the rest of my life in a dirty warehouse that was it. I was just completely transformed. Had to leave at 1 o'clock in the morning and go home, but that was just I just had this clear direction of where I wanted to go. And I think probably a lot of 14-year-olds do at that time. And, you know, we have kind of big dreams and whatnot of what we want to do in life. But for some reason, I really persevered with it and clung on to it. And the kind of passion and direction and intensity of kind of feeling that I had towards it never really wavered that much. So we were going to garage raves, but it was very much under the male gaze. You'd get dressed up, heels, little skirts, ladies drinking champagne and guys and this kind of thing. And it was all quite like, you know, sexy ladies and whatever. And when I went to my first jungle rave, it was like trainers. And it was just, that was it. I was kind of in my zone, dancing all night. And I never went to a garage rave after that again. So squat parties were my thing. And by the time I was 16, I really wanted to learn how to DJ. I felt like a seasoned pro at 16. I've been raving for 2 years, but they were really good raves that I went to. And I asked my dad, I was like, Dad, I really want to DJ. And he's from the Punjab, and he was setting up a Punjabi radio station at the time in Southall. And he was like, okay. And he was like, do you know the techniques? I was like, yeah, I know the techniques. He's like, I've got some upstairs. I was like, how do you just have these upstairs? And so I was totally spoiled. I never learned how to DJ on belt drives or anything like that. When I used to have to play at house parties, I'd be like, fuck, everyone had belt drives. And I went straight to Technics 1210s, which are like the best turntables you can get still now. So I basically got a pair of Technics 1210s when I was 16, and that was it. I was kind of indoors, just mixing. I'd go to charity shops. I didn't have a phone with like YouTube or anything like that, so I just go by what tune sounded good. Like if it had a name, I think the one was called like Cold Stepper. I'd be like, yeah, that sounds really good. And it would be, you just wouldn't know what it was going to be like, because it was so terrifying going to Black Market Records at that time. Black Market Records was a record shop in Soho that was the kind of epicenter of jungle and drum and bass at the time. And it would be hard to even get in there sometimes. It was so packed out. And I wouldn't be able to even put a record onto the turntable because my hands would just be completely shaking. I'd try and put the record back in the sleeve and like rip the sleeve. And it was a really, really intimidating experience. But it was all vinyl then, and it was all just hours and hours and hours and hours of mixing and practicing how to beat match. So when I was 20, I met David, and that's my partner, Double O. We run Rupture together. And we were really good mates, and we would just go out all the time, about 3-4 times a week we were going out then. And this was around 2006, 2005, 2006. And so the music at that time, Jump Up was massive. Jump Up was really popping off. And in terms of like break beats and jungle, there was a very small scene for it. But the scene that was thriving was Technicality and In Perspective. Does anyone know In Perspective Records? And then you do, yeah. So In Perspective was the record label, and his club night was called Technicality. And you look back on it, and it was absolutely legendary. But the truth is, there would have been often 20 people there, 25 people. A good night would have been 50 people there. It was, it wasn't that well attended. It was, 98% guys. But the people who were attending it were a young Breakage, a young Equinox, a young Fracture, a Neptune. And it was the science, and that's where kind of scientific work, Equinox always talks about it, the science and the complexities of the breakbeats were so intricate and so dark and so ruthless and militant. And this is what we were really just totally passionate about, was In Perspective and going to the Technicality nights. In all honesty, it wasn't the most welcoming crowd. It was quite, back then things were kind of quite tribal, if you like. Like if you were with a record label, then that was kind of your crew and your camp, and it was quite difficult to make inroads. But I have got a little clip of one of the kind of biggest tunes for us at the time, which is Acid Rain, the Breakage remix, just so you can kind of hear the detail and the levels of what Breakage was doing to the aim and break, and the darkness. It's like cyborgs mashing each other up, and it's really sick. So I wanted to play a little clip. The tune's about 8.5 minutes long, and it's almost kind of like breakcore-y, but these were the kind of levels, and it was kind of quite competitive, who could outdo each other, and there was a real community around it, and they were all really, I guess, inspiring each other and going deeper and darker and more complex, and we absolutely loved it. Herbal was the main club that we were going to, that was a really small club in Old Street, maybe about 300 capacity, but it's where a lot of the nights were. So me and David would go into Technicality every month. They had nights there like Bass Spin Records, and Groove Rider was there, and Hospitality. And we were going to Renegade Hardware a lot, which was at the end. So we were kind of going to these nights. At Technicality, it was drum funk, and it was amens, and it was complex patterns. And then at Hardware, it was more kind of techie and weighty. And for us, there wasn't this like sweet spot in between where you could hear a mixture of these sounds. So at Hardware, this is one of the tracks that was like a big track at Renegade Hardware by Spirit, R.I.P., he's passed away now. Just got a little clip of a track here, 2020 Part 2, which was a really big tune then. Just so you can have a listen. Wicked tune. Love that. So we were going out a lot, and like I said, it was quite tribalistic. It was really hard to get in, and you know, there was a couple of occasions when I'd been mixing then for kind of about 4 or 5 years, and I'd send mixtapes everywhere to people. Like people would then give you their addresses. Record labels had offices, so you could like send them to people, and it was really difficult to get sets. And I had a few, and I just had a couple of moments where there was one promoter who would, I don't know, I really to this day don't know why, but he wouldn't acknowledge me. And so my mate would be like, this is Indie Mantra, she's DJing, will you take her mix it? And he'd just look through me, not even say hi, yes, no, anything, and then walk away. And he kept doing that. And I'd be like, why isn't he even like acknowledging that I'm here, or like just saying no, thank you? And I found it so humiliating. And after like the third, fourth time, I was like, please, let's just stop doing that, because I don't know why he's doing it, but it's really making me feel so small and embarrassed and beggy. And I just started thinking, this isn't the way that it should be run. Like, where's the kind of pathways for people to come through? Where's the like openness? Where's the like community in the sense of like based on love and all just like being together to rave? And I remember me and David were going to Herbal one night, and we were in the car going down the Euston Road. And I just remember it so clearly. It's like this little thought that just kind of went here. I was like, we should start our own night. This is just really hard. And he was like, yeah. And then it's like, you know, we should just start our own night. And like with any ideas, there's David Lynch talked about it. It's like catching a fish. All these fish are out there floating about, and you've got to catch one. And then if you do catch one, just pay it a little bit of attention and see where it goes. Just nurture it a little bit, see where it goes. Water it a little bit, see if it grows into something. And it might not, and that's fine, but it just might. And I feel like with us, once we had this idea to do something, it just became an absolute obsession of like, let's just do it. We have no idea what we're doing, how we're going to start, but we can't run this way. I don't want to feel just so embarrassed having to like beg for sets in this way. It's like not good for my self-esteem, and it's just not a vibe, and I'm not doing it anymore. At the time, we were both working at SRD Distribution. We were in it hard. We were playing at squat parties a lot. There's no money in that or anything. We would travel anywhere to get a set. So often at squat parties, you turn up and then they just chief you off, and you're there for like 4 hours, and some DJ will just come and bully you, and they're in front of you, and you've got to wait another hour, and it's now 8 a.m, and everyone's waiting to DJ. But we'd just wait for hours and hours to try and get like an hour or two on the decks. So this was the main reason that we wanted to start, was just to kind of create something that was our own, and to have a space where we could just broaden the kind of music that was getting played in some of the clubs. It was quite narrow. It was quite like niche each night. And I know people think our night is quite niche. It probably is in some ways, but at the time it felt like super niche. So I wanted to kind of open it up a little bit. So like with anything, I think there can sometimes be this misconception that when you start something, you have to have like a plan. And don't think that's the case at all. I think you just have to have passion and drive. And of course, like a bit of a plan, but sometimes what stops us doing things is this idea that other people know better and other people know what they're doing, and it all just feels really overwhelming. I still feel like that now, having been in this for so long. Sometimes I'll often have moments of just like, what are we doing? How are we doing this? It's all just scrambling things together. But it's just about just following that energy, I think, is the most important thing, and trying to tune into your intuition. So this was our first night, 2006. My mate's big sister had just done this artwork, and we took a picture of it. And I have no idea, I had a look at it the other day. It says digital animation supplied by Lynn Hagen. Not a clue who Lynn Hagen is or what she did. I have no idea. But this was the lineup here. I was too nervous to play, so I didn't. So we got the name Rupture. We were going to call it Spectrum, and it was actually my dad who came up with the idea, with the name Rupture. We were like, Spectrum, yeah, we'll call it the full spectrum. And then we were he was like, you want to be crossing borders and crossing barriers and rupturing things. And then it was like Rupture, and the name just came, and it kind of worked with us because we were thinking of break beats. We like our beats broken, and it just made sense. And again, it was just using what we had around us to make something work. The venue was Dingwalls, which was on a Sunday night. That's quite hard work for your first night. It's a Sunday, it's a big club, it's 400 capacity. It's also a Metalheads was on a Sunday, and Metalheads, like their legendary Sunday sessions. In hindsight, you learn a lot. In hindsight, that's not the thing to do, is to be trying to copy like Metalhead's Sunday sessions. And we didn't even think we were really copying it, but actually it was like, hang on a minute, if we're going to start something new, we really need to try and carve out our own space. So Dingwalls, we only did one party there. We then moved to a space called Public Life, which was 100 capacity. It was actually a toilet in Old Street, and that's why it was called Public Life. And we then moved to 6 Feet Under, which was, again, tiny little 200 capacity venue. Fortress Studios, which was a members only thing, so we had to get everyone's emails. And I remember with that, one night we were there, and like, I had to hold the cable in the sound system for like 2 hours because it was just mash up. So I was just there, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm good. Just here for 2 hours. But within 2 years, we had, done quite a lot of nights. And we realized that for us, it was about keeping things small for the first couple of years, kind of 200 capacity venues. And flyering was the main way of getting the word out then. And there was a huge flyering culture. It was quite like, it would get quite, quite intense on the sidelines of like trying to get your flyers. There'd be easily 20, 30 people outside of the raves trying to give their flyers to people. And it would get quite aggy at times, actually, and quite competitive. But you would also then be with all the promoters, because generally it's the promoters just doing it themselves. So at least there was a space for all of us to kind of be together. And it wasn't all like peace, love and unity. It was like, it was quite tense sometimes. But it was at least that you were all there kind of connecting in the same space at like 7 o'clock in the morning. Cool, so this was our first birthday. I have a little video of it at Public Life. Can we just do that? You can see how old it is by how short David's dreadlocks are. That was Equinox DJing. And a lot of the people there still come to the raves. So that was our first birthday. And there was probably, again, we're just talking about 40, 50 people that were there. So it wasn't about numbers, but it was about just energy and it just feeling like there was enough there to kind of spur us forward. And I think the whole process of putting on a night was something that I love so much. There were quite a lot of hurdles that we definitely had to face. I remember turning up to one club, 6 Feet Under, and we turned up and it was just closed. And the guy was like, sorry, I'm in Jamaica. And we were like, we've got people turning up to our rave. But you kind of, these pickles and how you kind of get out of them are definitely life affirming. So by our second birthday, we'd found Corsica Studios. It was just a tip-off from a mate who said, I found this really cool club. It's house and techno, though, but try and get in there. So I remember just like writing out a proposal and taking it to meet the owners at the time, Adrian and Amanda. And they were really skeptical about it because down the road, there was a club called the Coronet, which had loads of really big jump-up raves. And like I said, around this time, kind of 2008, drum and bass was just seen as like, I mean, to be honest, I don't even know how drum and bass is seen now, to be honest. I don't look at it too much, but it didn't have a great reputation. So they were really unsure about it. But we managed to persuade them to let us do one night. And that's where, for us, just everything changed, because there was no drum and bass at this venue. It was an art space. And when they did do nights, it was house and techno. So just being able to have our own space that was separate and create our own path made us stand out in a way that was really significant, because the sound was so incredible at Corsica, I think. So I tried to piece this together. It doesn't look great. But you can just see it's like, it's industrial, it's small. Like the main room, it looks much bigger there, but the main room can probably hold 250 people. The second room can hold 200 people. But there's this kind of maze-like quality to it where loads of people say, oh, I get lost in it. And that's what I love about a rave, is that feeling of getting lost and not quite knowing where you are. And the sound was just so beautiful. Corsica is closing next year. So we only have another year of it, which is pretty heartbreaking. But they are going to transform it into something else. So it's not going to be completely gone, but the days and raves there are very limited. And I think as well with Adrian and Amanda, we kind of had this similar attitude as the owners there, which was, let's just put on a really wicked party. And, you know, Adrian would sometimes say things to me like, you know, what's your budget for this? And I'd be like, I don't really know. We just have to make it work. Like, I don't know what the budget is. That's not my that's not my strong point. An Excel sheet is not my strong point. But trying to create the right vibe and the right artists together and making sure that it's a really good party is. So we've been at Corsica Studios now for, 17 years. Not exclusively, we've done some other parties in other places as well. And I think from early on, it wasn't even a conscious thing, but I think just by default of David being a black man, me being a mixed heritage woman, meant that like we had awareness that was just there since day one about social inequality and exclusion. And I grew up, my dad was like a Khalistani, which was fighting for independent Punjab in the 80s. So they were viewed as like a terrorist group, freedom fighters, we all know. But it meant that week in, week out, I was going to protests and rallies and all kinds of demonstrations. You know, I'd be lying if I was like, yeah, I was really connected to them and really loved them and really understood them. But I like throwing eggs at cars going into the Indian embassy. And I liked that, like it was just something that was, we didn't have any say of whether we wanted to go or not. We would just have to go to these protests all the time. And David grew up in Doncaster in the 70s and 80s and, you know, experienced horrendous racism as a child in school, and then also when he was a young DJ. So it's something that when we started Rupture, it wasn't like we had this intention of like, let's make sure it's like really inclusive and that like everyone feels welcome. It was something that was just a kind of given, if you like. I always, like my inspirations were obviously Chemistry and Storm growing up, and I just thought women DJing were like the coolest thing ever. So let's make sure that we have women playing at our nights. And we kind of had that from day one. And then in 2017, I set up EQ50 alongside DJ Flight, Sweet Pea and Cheekaboo. I'll just touch on it quickly. It's a collective to address the gender imbalance within drum and bass. And if you look at these stats now, this is what started it, was just a post on Instagram that I put up where I had just had my second child, excuse me, and I was just a bit bored and just thinking, yeah, like there just do not seem to be enough women DJing at the moment. So I went through their nights and I tallied this up. And it's kind of crazy if you look at it. And this was only, God, I'm so bad with maths, like 8 years ago. So I put this post up and it kind of Red Bull Music Academy got in touch and were like, do you want to do an event with us? And slowly, this is how EQ50 was formed. It was never, again, we never had this kind of big plan to set it up. It's just something that happened step by step. And I think now, if you look at it, I know we ruffled a lot of feathers, but I'm in hospital now, do mentorships for women, and I'd like to do this again actually, because I think even Rupture wasn't great. Like look at ours, like 17% isn't particularly good either. But we have definitely made progress. Yeah, I think as well for us, again, this isn't something that is a orchestrated thing. It's just something that is very important to us. And, you know, I think all of this, when people try and separate politics from music, I just think it's absolutely impossible. You know, I have a friend who, her dad was a racist football hooligan and went raving and fell in love with a black woman, and that's her mum and dad, and had a family. Like, raving can do that. I think dance floors can do that. I've seen, like, looking around, the best dance floors can do that, can really bring everyone together in a really powerful way that is meaningful and is important, because it's a chance to just, like, it sounds hippie, but have this like love and understanding of people that you don't know, just human kindness. I think it can really shine a light on that. And that's really, really powerful. And that's like the best dance floors do that. You have people from a wide range of backgrounds all connecting through music. And yeah, that's something that both me and David like feel a lot of gratitude for, is kind of having a space where, and it's not every time, but where like a lot of the time people do comment on the kind of nature and the vibe of the dance floor as being somewhere that is really respectful of each other. This is hard, you know, in a rave with like hundreds of people, ensuring that those inside Rupture align with your values. But we have, they're not like dedicated people, but we have a handful of about 5 or 6 of our crew that I call them the guardians of the rave. And I just trust them because they're seasoned ravers, they're elders. They've been doing this a long time, and they've got their eyes out, and they're making sure that if a guy is a little bit mash up, just keeping a little eye on him, or they'll come over and go, just keep a little eye on that person over there. Make sure she's okay. She's looking really mash up. Just make sure, you know what I mean? Like, just keeping an eye to make sure everyone's okay. Even to our door team at Corsica, the door team that we have, the head security only work for Rupture. And we're really lucky that we request them, and they don't really do security work anymore, but they'll come out to our parties and they will do the door for us. And again, they understand what we're about and they understand our vibe and value. And so I just trust them, like I completely trust them to be able to do a good job of who to let in and who not to let in. Yeah, so always striving to improve, listening back to what people, any feedback that people have, and then having this kind of desire to just think about new ideas in festival stages and not always thinking about going bigger. For us, that's never been the plan. We've turned down so many opportunities to do bigger things that have been like collaborations with brands, that if I get that icky feeling, I would, and I find it quite hard to make decisions. So as soon as I'm like, I'd just rather not, you know? And maybe there is a big opportunity there, maybe there's not. But I think for us, in terms of sustainability, it's what's kept us being able to do it for so long, is just going really, really slowly and tenderly and cautiously. And actually going smaller is what we've wanted to do. So we started this series called Ferry to the Underworld, which is 2 DJs all night long at Corsica Studios, 1 room, 300 capacity. And that's just been magical. Like, it's such a beautiful experience to be able to play from open to close. And I actually feel like where I'm at right now, that's kind of where I would rather go, is almost scaling back a little bit. We've got 20 years of Rupture next year, so I know we're going to have to do some like big celebrations for that. But it's, I guess it's your measurements of success, for sure, change, aren't what they're going to be when you've started out, or aren't going to be what they were 10 years ago or whatever. And that's all good.